Okay, today's topic is reference angles. We really know about reference angles. Reference angles are like parent angles, essentially. We've dealt with all of the basic unit circle parent functions, but you probably guessed by now that not every angle measure is going to come from 30, 45, or 60. So we need to be able to deal with everything at this point. But in general, a reference angle is just a quadrant 1 equivalent angle, a quadrant 1 function, a parent. Okay? So think about what we know from before with our basic unit circle. Again, the three basic functions, the three basic parents in quadrant 1 are 30, 45, and 60. We reflected those over the x-axis to land in quadrant 2. And when we got our 30-degree reflection, we landed at 150. And I kept saying, why is that the case? And it's because we didn't make it to 180. We had to subtract that 30 degrees. So we did 180 minus 30 to get 150. That x-axis, that 180, 360 line, is key to really everything we do. Same with 45. 180 minus 45 gave me 135. And same for 60. 180 minus 60 gave me its child, 120. The only difference today is we're going to work it backwards. We're going to be given a quadrant 2 angle like 150, and you're going to be asked where it came from. So you'll do 180 minus 150 to say it came from 30. Okay, so math is indeed consistent. You already really know this stuff. It's just you're going to be given expressions or numbers that you haven't seen before. And the same works for all the quadrants. So we'll do some examples in each. Again, as always, if you get it, give things a try and fast forward. You don't have to watch the entire 8-minute video if you get it, but there are math Excel problems after. All right, so what if I ask you to find a function that's equivalent to the sine of 160, say? Well, that's not one we know, and it's not one you will know. It's not a pretty one. But we can find an equivalent function using what we know about our reference angles. First of all, think about where 160 is. 160 degrees is in quadrant 2, and sine is positive in quadrant 2. So your answer will be a positive answer. It'll be positive sine of something. Now, I just want to remind you for a minute about where things are positive and negative. In quadrant 1, all of the trig functions are positive. In quadrant 2, only sine is. In quadrant 3, only tangent is. And in quadrant 4, only cosine is. And so that's our all said triangles cry document. So I draw a little picture. There's my 160 degrees. It didn't make it to 180. So to figure out how short it is from 180, I do 180 minus 160, and I get 20. So the sine of 160 degrees is equal to the sine of 120 degrees, or 20 degrees. And notice I put the positive out there because it just is a gentle reminder that sine is positive in quadrant 2. Now, you can check these on your calculator, and I strongly suggest you do that. So let me show you how. Go to your calculator, make sure you add a page that's a calculator page, or at the very least a scratch pad. Make sure you're in degrees mode. You should be. We haven't changed out of that. And after I get my calculator page, let's type sine of what I was given, 160. And I don't care about its value. I wonder if that expression is equal to the sine of 20. So you don't need decimals or crazy answers here. You just want to know that true sine of 160 equals sine of 20. That's a nice little test function that will come in very handy. Okay, so that's an example of a quadrant 1 angle. Let's move around your little circle, or your unit circle, a little more, because we do have angles that live other places. So for example 2, I'm going to give you another problem with sine. Please understand that this works with cosine and tangent as well. It's the process that I want you to understand today, and then you can switch up the function names as necessary. So here we're going to find an equivalent to sine of 200. Well, 200 degrees is in quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, sine is negative. So my answer is going to be the negative sine of something. So sine of 200 equals negative sine, and I write that right away so I don't forget it. And now we have to figure out how far away 200 is from that magic 180 line. And the quadrant 3 rule is take the angle you were given, 200, and subtract 180 from it, and that will tell you that we're 20 degrees away. And so its quadrant 1 reference angle is 20 degrees. 200 minus 180 is 20. So the sine of 200 degrees is equal to the negative sine of 20 degrees. And again, we're going to check that on our calculator. Take the time to check. You should never wonder if you've gotten things right if you're actually checking on your calculator. So here I'm wondering, is the sine of 200 equal to the negative sine of 20? And once again, I get true. It might be worth typing in something that's not true to see that you do get false. So it's not just always going to tell you true. Okay, one more example, and then I'll summarize for you, and you'll be done. Let's switch up functions here. So let's talk about cosine. And so for the last example, I want to find an equivalent to cosine of 305 degrees. Okay, well, 305 degrees is in quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, cosine is positive. So the cosine of 305 degrees is going to be equal to the positive cosine of some number. Again, the x-axis is like our magic line, and then on the right side it's 360. So how far away is 305 degrees from 360? Well, the quadrant 4 rule is 360 minus 305, which gives me 55. And I'm done. Cosine of 305 is equal to the positive cosine of 55. Once again, take the time to check on your calculator. Type your expression in. Cosine 305. Does that equal the cosine of 55? And true, it does. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is just a quick summary for you. There's really two major things you need to worry about with reference angles. You need to worry about what quadrant you're in and what the rule is for that quadrant in terms of signs, positive and negative signs, and the number, the angle measure, that's the quadrant 1 parent. So two things to keep in mind. First thing, what quadrant are you in for your positive or negative function answer? And again, if you do that quick drawing of all said triangles cry, quadrant 1, all functions are positive, 2 only sine, 3 only tan, 4 only cosine. That'll help you get your answer to that piece quickly. And then the second thing you worry about is the quadrant rule, how you find the quadrant 1 reference angle in the other quadrants. Well, in quadrant 2, we do 180 minus theta, the angle you were given. In quadrant 3, it's theta minus 180. And in quadrant 4, 360 minus theta, or the angle you are given. That's it. Do some Math Excel, and have a great night.